Good morning, boys and girls, and welcome back to the southern wing of the Stink Bug Works. I got a couple of things accomplished yesterday. I thought I'd share them with you. The motor is mounted. The stuffing tube is mounted. Clearances are about right. Tolerances are real tight. So let's go over what I did. I opened up the hole here in the hull to allow the stuffing tube to not touch anything as I'm setting up the motor. And I have the stuffing tube with the cable in it and all lined up and such, so everything's where it's supposed to be. Then I just ran a tack bead of epoxy along these motor mounts and put it under the heat lamp for a few hours. Well, once that cooked off, I pulled the motor out and mixed up some milled fiberglass with epoxy and made a nice little fillet all around these motor mount pieces. So I've got a good contact area on the hull. Now, of course, you got to prep, right? You got to sand it. I take a little toothbrush, brush it off, and then I wipe it down with alcohol, and then it's ready to go. For the stuffing tube, what I did is, after the motor mounts were solid, I put the motor back in, then ran the tube again with the cable all into it, and the tube is now floating in that hole. And so I took a piece of fiberglass strand, and I kind of wrapped it around and under and pulled it back to where it kind of made a little pigtail, and I did that a couple of times. And then I laid a piece of 2-ounce cloth over that, and then I took what was left in my epoxy, I added some milled fiberglass to that and started mixing that in, and kind of, because this cloth is a little stiff and it wanted to rise up, so I'd take some milled fiberglass and epoxy and kind of keep it down like that. And then as it got pretty tacky, it would stay there. So then I come in again with a little bit more epoxy and milled fiberglass, and at the same time I'm working on the underside as well. And so you can see that was that first wrap. You can see it right there, and I left a little gap, and then I filled that gap in with epoxy and shredded fiberglass. So that gives me a real strong and structurally solid through hole. Since everything's uptight here, if something should ever go out of whack, there could be a lot of loads on this. So I want a good solid joint there. You know, I just don't want that moving. So that's pretty much it. I'm going to be putting in some cooling, nothing fancy. Then my plan is to make one more block of jam foam to go in this area. So I'll cut it out for the servo and the linkage and have it over here. And then my receiver, I'll just somehow like cut a little recess in the jam foam, and that will be my receiver. It'll just sit there. And this jam foam, I've got to make it tight in here somehow. Either that, or I'll just tack glue it down with rubber cement. That works real well too. So there you go, boys and girls. It won't be too long before this little thing goes into the paint shop. And it's going to become the pay and pat. Oh, I need a bigger cable cutter if I'm going to be cutting this stuff in the future. I have some real nice cable cutters, but they just barely cut this. I need ones with longer handles. I don't run this size cable very often. You won't see me using this ever again. That's why I used this, remember? It was taking up space in my box of drive shafts, and it wouldn't really fold up and fit, so it just had to stick out one side. So I'm glad I found a project I could use it. Big B ordered and found a Speedmaster strut, but bearings are hard to find. And so I just finally made mine. I made it as long as my particular shaft. And I made another one up here. Jim asked, why did I have the motor at such an angle? And quite frankly, that's 22 millimeters from there to there, so I had to have a big drop. I needed a straight portion going in here because remember, this thing is a bearing. So I needed it's, at least that much of it straight before it started bending. And quite frankly, that's just where the geometry of this put it. If I put everything right down on the deck, that's the angle of dangle. And then I set a danglometer to that, and everything hinges to that number. That's basically why that's that way. So there you go, boys and girls. Let's see what I get done today, and I'll see you until next time. Jet out.